All right, welcome to the first ever Drew Darden, aka Jeremy Stevens Q&A. I had some good questions from Jughead96, but at what cost? John V73, Major Tendonitis, TF Crew, and Galois Theory. I had some questionable questions from Monster Ultra, Orson Welles, Gooba, and Average Kenneth. So let's just go ahead and get into it. What was the final straw? Why did I finally decide to take the weight off? Well, just to give a little bit of context, just in case you don't know the full story, which why would you? When I was younger, when I was a kid, I was maybe kind of a chubby kid, but not like, I wasn't the fat kid or anything like that. But I mean, I played football, was on the wrestling team, played baseball, basketball. When I stopped playing football, I was 18 years old. I stepped onto the scale like 6 months after all the sports had ended, and I weighed like 237 pounds, which at my height, back then I was 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", something like that. I'm probably more like 5'8", 5'9" now. At 237 pounds, I mean, I had probably put on 50 pounds because I wrestled at 189 pounds. So I got down real lean, and throughout my 20s, I stayed fairly lean, looked pretty jacked. I worked as a personal trainer in my late 20s for a couple of years. It wasn't until I turned about 30, I had a smokeless tobacco, or in the South we call it dip. I had a dip addiction from say 15 to about 30. And when I quit that habit when I was 30, started getting into powerlifting, and all these things just kind of happened all at once, gained 100 pounds nearly overnight. And throughout my 30s, stayed pretty fat, and but was going up and down. I mean, I'd lose weight, I lost a significant amount of weight, gain it all back, lose a significant amount of weight, gain it all back and more. Finally, I was about 38 or 39 and woke up one day and I was 392 pounds. And that was, it was terrifying, to be honest with you. I would fall asleep at night afraid that I wasn't going to wake up in the morning. So what was the final straw was that. I mean, I couldn't breathe. I had to sleep sitting straight up, basically. So that was really it for me. And I remember looking at my training partner, one of the guys that I work out with. One of the things that always stayed true was that I always lifted weights from the time I was 15 until now. Never really took any breaks from that. But I told my lifting partner, I said, you know what? I've tried every diet. I've tried all the cardio. I've done it all. I've taken all the drugs from the doctor. I've gotten phentermine. I've taken, whatever shots. And every time I gained it all back. So I remember telling him, it's got to be me. This has to be something that I can do for the rest of my life. It can't be something that I take for 6 months and then, gain it all back. I have to do it on my own. No more negotiating with myself, no more bullshit, no more pills, just me. And that's it. That was the final straw, and I have stuck to that ever since. What was my go-to snack when I was fat? I just ate all the time. Like I said, I was a competitive power lifter. Not that I was a great power lifter or anything, but I did compete in powerlifting and was pretty strong, But I remember there were times, I would go train in Mount Juliet. There's a powerlifting gym out there with a great powerlifter named Wade Johnson and a great coach. He was USAPL Coach of the Year last year, if that means anything to you. He's a IPF world champion powerlifter, if that means anything to you. Anyway, I remember I would drive out there and I would stop on the way and I would get a couple of sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits, a couple of hash browns, and down that 20 minutes, 30 minutes before we would lift, just so I would feel kind of full and bloated. Like those are the kind of meals that I would eat back then. And it wasn't like 3 meals a day. I mean, I'd eat that as often as I felt like it. So, and I remember there was a place in Nashville, if you've ever been to Nashville, called Fat Mo's. There was a bunch of them when I was younger, but now we're down to maybe there's 1 or 2 of them in town. But I remember when I was peak, 392 pounds, I got the biggest burger they had and it was like a 3-pound burger or something like that. I just remember eating until I was sick. I mean, I'd eat, I'd eat, and then a couple hours later I'd eat again. Just not good, not good. All right. Why am I gay? It says. Well, I've been married since 2002, and only ever dated females, and I have 3 kids with a female, and so yeah, not gay. Can we all agree that 6'3" or to 6'4" is the perfect height? To be honest with you, I'm not from a generation where we're all wrapped up in height. I know that you guys are, and it is what it is. If height's important to you, height's important to you. It just never played a role for me. I mean, I was never going to be a great basketball player, or probably I was never going to be a great athlete because of my height, my average height. So yeah, it just doesn't play a role for me. If 6'3" or 6'4", it would be great if I was that, but I'm not. So I don't know. Do I think I have good genetics for bodybuilding, or do I think that everything that I've been able to accomplish for myself has been just discipline? I would hesitate to call myself a bodybuilder. I would say that I've adopted the diet and training of kind of old school 90s and 2000s bodybuilders, because that is what works for me. But I don't think of myself as being a bodybuilder. Had I not messed my body up by gaining so much and losing so much and gaining so much and losing so much, do I think I could have had good genetics for bodybuilding? Yeah, maybe. I have, especially legs, calves, maybe shoulders are decent. I don't think my chest would have been particularly good. My arms, my biceps don't have big peaks, and I don't have naturally big arms. Matter of fact, even though I put so much effort into training like a bodybuilder and trying to develop everything evenly, I don't think I have good arms as a result of all that work that I've put in. So, and some of that's because I have tendonitis in my arms, especially on this right side. But no, I don't think I have particularly good genetics. I think my discipline for the past 3 years or so, going on 3 years, has been elite. I can't imagine anybody being more disciplined than me. I haven't eaten anything outside of the plan for 3 years. I haven't had a cheeseburger in 3 years. I haven't had a Snickers bar in 3 years. It's been chicken, rice, broccoli, lean ground beef, steak, wild caught salmon, jasmine rice, the occasional apple or blueberries. That's it, man. I would do tuna fish when my wife was in the hospital. I would do tuna fish and rice packets then, because that's the only option I had available to me. But yeah, discipline, man, discipline. Where would I be without lifting? That's an interesting question, because I think in some ways I might be better off without it. Had I not started lifting in the first place if I had just stopped lifting after high school, if I had just lifted for football and wrestling and, like most people, just gave it up after that, probably I would have never gotten so OCD about my weight and my body in the first place, and I might have never gotten so fixated on it and, developed, call it an eating disorder or whatever, and gained 100 pounds like that. Maybe that stuff would have never happened if I'd have never really gotten into lifting like that. So I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. I'm not somebody who has ever, except for when I was a personal trainer for a couple of years, I'm not somebody who's like making a living off of that. I work as a teacher. I'm a special education teacher. So, without it, I'd probably have less muscle and more fat on me, but I don't know. I wonder if I'd be happier. As long as I wasn't 400 pounds, if I was just a normal skinny fat guy, if I was 175, 185 pound guy, I'd probably be happier. My brother was raised in the same house as me, same foods available to him as me, same parents as me. We're roughly the same age. We're 15 months apart. I'm sorry, my kids are 15 months apart. My brother and I are 363 days apart. So, and he's 150, he wrestled at 119 pounds in high school, where I wrestled at 189, and he weighs probably 150 pounds today. So, and he doesn't he just, when he's full, he just stops eating. No discipline required. He just has this off switch that says, okay, it's time to stop eating. For whatever reason, I don't have that off switch, whether that's because I started to get involved in lifting weights and eating 6 meals a day when I was 18 years old, and that messed me up for life, or because there's something biological. I don't know. But yeah, I'd probably be better off if I was more like my brother. Am I glad that Mario Miami is gone, and do I secretly actually like that guy? No, I didn't like the guy. He came in. It was very strange to me. I am who I present myself to be. So when I post lifting threads on Obnoxious Brutes, I'm just posting as me. I'm posting weightlifting videos. I lift weights for an hour and 15 minutes every day, and I post a quick little snippet of it for you guys because I like to talk about lifting with people. Mario Miami would come in and just be running his mouth, and I don't know. I mean, I didn't like to see him coming. I didn't like to see him showing up in my threads and running his mouth. One time I remember I was set to, I told Metro was here lifting with me that day, and one of our other training partners. I told Metro, I said, I'm going to go after Mario Miami today. I'm going to smoke him. And Metro was the one who said, I don't want to tell you exactly what he said, but he basically said, take it easy on the guy. He's got his own issues or whatever. And so, and Metro is objectively a nicer guy than me. So I said, you're right. I'll just drop it. I'll let the guy have whatever he wants in these threads and just move on. And which is difficult, but I just let him have it. No, don't like the guy. No, wasn't secretly sad to see him go. Do I still get cravings even after the past 3 years of strict discipline with the diet? I don't really get cravings anymore. I had a discussion about this on Instagram, and a bunch of people got mad at me for saying this because they were picking on this fat guy who was talking about wanting to lose weight, and he said, is it ever going to get easier? Is this ever going to get easier for me? Or am I going to be struggling like this for the rest of my life? And I remember thinking like that myself when I was 392 pounds. I remember thinking, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And that was one of the reasons why my weight kept going up and down, because I would get to a point where I would say, I don't think I can do this. But actually, after a certain amount of months and a certain amount of years, no, I don't. I get up, I cook my food for the day, and it's there for me to eat, and I just eat those meals throughout the day. That's it. No, I don't. When I smell food anymore, I cook food for my wife all the time. She's a normal size person, doesn't have a weight problem like me, and I'll even cook delicious food for her that I would love to eat, but I don't have any strong desire for it anymore like I used to. So that does get easier. Do I ever, or have I ever had any classic cars? My first car was a 1960 F100, actually. This was 1996. I turned 16 in 96. My dad had a rule. I grew up, with a certain amount of privilege. My dad was very successful and had a fair bit of money. But his rule was that for the first year, you get a car that, probably cost $1,000 or $2,000. And if you don't smash it up too bad, if you prove that you can handle that, then he would get you a nicer car. And he found that, if I'm not mistaken, he found that 1960 Ford F100 pickup truck for like $1,000 on the side of the road. It had been in a barn. It was blue and white, had the original paint on it. The only thing about it was the bed had rust in it. But it had been in a barn for years and years and years. They bought it. The old man who bought it died, and his wife had found it and was selling it. And that was my first car. It lasted for a year. My dad, after a year, my dad was worried that there was a gas tank. There's a big metal gas tank in those old trucks right behind the seat. And he was worried that if I did get into an accident, it was going to explode and I was going to get killed. So he gave me at the time he had a 1994 GMC pickup truck. And that was my second car. So Yes, my first car was a classic car. Do I have an experience with the keto diet? What do I think of the keto diet? Ketogenic diets are something that I have a lot of experience with. I used them before this current iteration of, say, the past 3 years or so. The past 3 years has been very simple. Chicken, rice, broccoli. I simplify it with chicken, rice, broccoli. I even joke with my kids, I call it the CURB diet, CRB. But it's chicken, rice, broccoli, and lean ground beef, mixed in with the chicken, and basically 8 ounces of meat per meal, 8 ounces of lean meat per meal. And it's a mixture of, for meals 2 through 6, it's a mixture of lean ground beef and chicken. First meal is 8 ounces of salmon, wild caught salmon, lower fat. So prior to that though, when I was losing weight, gaining weight, yeah, I messed around with ketogenic diets. My downfall every time was that I believed in these cyclical ketogenic diets, which, if you're lifting weights and you're doing a bunch of cardio, it probably has to be cyclical, because your glycogen levels are going to be depleted after a few days. And how are you going to lift and progressively lift weights with depleted glycogen stores? It's going to be difficult. So you eat more carbs, call it a cheat meal, call it a refeed day, refeed meal, whatever you want to do. For me, for somebody who has a tendency to overindulge in foods that are delicious, probably not a good idea. I would ruin a whole week's worth of, easily I could ruin a whole week's worth of dieting and fat loss with one giant meal, because I can eat until, I can eat indefinitely. I can just keep eating. So I think it's great. I think if that's what works for you and that's what you like to do and that keeps you satiated and that keeps you feeling full and that keeps you motivated to keep moving, do it. It's not my thing. I eat, I would say, moderate carbohydrate for the most part. Now, there are times when I've gone higher carbs and lower protein. I've experimented. I told you that I eat 8 ounces of lean meat per meal, and that's been true for 90% of the past 3 years. But I've experimented with less protein, more carbs, even more protein and less carbs. But I usually find that to be the sweet spot for me. About 3 pounds of meat per day spread across 6 meals, and moderate amounts of carbs. What do I consider? The next question is, what do I consider moderate carbs? Well, for me, it's an amount that where I feel pretty good energy throughout the day, and it tends to be around 350. I eat a lot of protein. I've already described that, but it ends up being around 325 to 350 grams of protein, probably about the same amount of carbs, and then lowish fat, somewhere around 40 or 50 grams of fat. Usually in the neighborhood of, if I'm eating a maintenance calorie diet, somewhere around 3,000 calories, something like that. And in the neighborhood of between 300 and 350 grams of carbs. That's moderate to me. If I was trying to gain muscle, I was trying to bulk up some, I would eat more carbs than that. I'd keep my protein the same probably and eat more carbs. On a cut some of those carbohydrates out. And I've gone all the way down to 2 or 3 servings of rice per day, which is more like 70, 80, 90, 100 grams of carbs. Now you start to feel miserable even at that, Anyway, I think in the keto question, they asked something about what's considered low carb too. Low carb for me, since I don't follow a ketogenic diet, low carb for me was anywhere in the neighborhood of, once you get to about 125 grams of carbs, maybe 150, partially because I do so much lifting. I lift 6 days per week on a moderate to high volume schedule, and do cardio 7 days per week. So I burn up a lot of energy. So for me, what seems like low carb might be a little bit different than somebody else. Somebody said, let's see, it was that Galois theory maybe, asked me about eating the same meals over and over again. And he mentioned me eating it 3 times a day. Actually, it's 6 times a day. I eat the same meal 6 times a day. And I kind of already answered this, but I do vary things a little bit. It's mostly chicken, rice, broccoli, wild-caught salmon, lean ground beef. But I go through phases where instead of the 95.5 lean ground beef that I get through Amazon, or the 96.4 lean ground beef that I can get from Kroger, I might do flank steak instead. So if on a typical day, it's 8 ounces of wild-caught salmon for breakfast, 24 ounces of chicken breast, not chicken, no rib meat, none of that, just the low fat plain chicken breast, and 16 ounces of lean ground beef. But I might do 32 ounces of chicken and 8 ounces of flank steak for a month or something like that until I get tired of chopping up all that steak, because it's very tough. You got to pound it, chop it, all that stuff, and it's a pain. I'd rather, the lean ground beef is just easier for my my process, for my daily routine. And it's much like an assembly line. I think of it like an assembly line, and the faster I can get it done in the morning, the quicker I can move on with my day. So yeah, I change things up a little bit. I'll change the vegetables. Sometimes like right now, I'm doing 2 bags of broccoli in the rice cooker with my jasmine rice every day. But I could change that to 1 bag of green beans instead. That's about the same amount of carbs as the 2 bags of broccoli from the brand that I buy. There are times when I'll go through and I'll do 1 bag of like Italian stir fry vegetables instead. Just no, and I season all the stuff myself. So I just get the plain version of everything and season it myself. But yeah, I do little variations like that. But it's 6 meals every day. Roughly the macros are all tracked. I weigh all the food, measure all the food, track everything, and yeah, 6 meals a day. All right, well, that's it, at least for part 1. If there's more questions, then I might come out and answer the rest of them later. But for now, thank you guys for the questions, and I'll go ahead and upload. Bye.